Hey guys, before we get started, I just wanted to say thank you to Mr. Bill for taking the time out to get to know ClyphX Pro and do a very comprehensive video on it. If you haven't yet checked that out, I highly recommend it. I'll leave a link in the description. And while you're over there, you may want to subscribe to his channel because he's got some great content that you could certainly benefit from. So this video is the first in what I hope to be a series of videos where I answer your ClyphX Pro related questions. The question for this video comes from YouTube user, and I hope I pronounced this right, Sinan166. Who posted a comment on Mr. Bill's ClyphX Pro video. And the question is, when you randomize stuff, can you set upper and lower limits, like randomize the BPM, but make it so it never goes below 90 and above 190? The short answer to that is yes, but there are different ways of randomizing things in ClyphX Pro, and so we'll take a look at both of those things. And while we're at it, we might as well look at controlling parameters in general. Before we get into this topic, there's a couple details you need to be aware of. In Live, there's essentially two classifications of parameters. We have regular parameters, which are things like, rack macros, for example, and those are typically automatable. Okay, that's the distinction. The other is actually not a parameter. It looks like a parameter, but it's not. It's called a property, and that's stuff like tempo. Okay, and that's typically stuff that can't be automated. Now, one of the goals in ClyphX Pro is to standardize things. So, for example, you shouldn't have to know, the difference between a parameter and a property. You should just be able to control them both in the same way. And we've done our best to make that possible. But there are a couple of differences between the two, and that's what we'll look at in this video, because it has a bearing on randomization. So let's first take a look at controlling parameters. In this case, we'll control the macro named transpose key. So we can set its value to 100 in this case. We can multiply the value by 0.5 in this case, which will cut it in half. We can increase or decrease the value in increments of 1, or in some other increment, 4 for example. We could ramp or smoothly change the value over a period of time. We can randomize the value, and we can randomize the value within a specific range, 40 through 80 in this case. So that answers part of the question. We can randomize parameter values within a given range. Now let's take a look at controlling properties. In this case, we'll control tempo, and again, we could set its value. We can multiply it. We can increase or decrease by 1. We can increase or decrease by 10. We could ramp the tempo, and we could randomize it. For technical reasons, we can't randomize within a given range, at least not this way, but there is another way to do it. We need to take a slight detour here to talk about another ClyphX Pro feature, and that is action lists. These will be performed in order, but very quickly, so it appears that they're all happening at once. For that reason, this first action list makes no sense, because we're not going to see the BPM change from 100 to 110, etc. We're just going to see it change to 140. But if we take that same action list and put P sequence before it, now something different happens. Every time we launch the clip, it's going to step through the actions in the list one at a time. If we use our P sequence, we can step through the list randomly. With only 4 choices though, there's not much randomization going on. We can fix that by adding more BPM actions. Here we run into kind of a problem though, at least for me. I like to be able to see the entire action list, and we don't have enough real estate in this clip to see that. So there's a better way of going about this in ClyphX Pro, and that is to use what are called macros. A macro is an action list that's defined in a file. The file's name is macros, and it's in the ClyphX Pro settings folder. So here I've defined a macro named RND-BMP for randomized BPM, and I've listed a bunch of BPM actions. Okay, I could list more if I wanted to, but this is enough for this example. And the range goes from 100 up to 140.5. Now when I go back in Live and trigger this, you can see there's more randomization going on now. So this is the way of achieving randomized ranges in a slightly different way. And this is actually useful in a variety of different cases because it allows you to define a minimum value, a maximum value, and every other value in between. In other words, you have controlled randomization. So I hope that answered your question and gave you some ideas on how you can, leverage this functionality in ClyphX Pro to your advantage. Again, if there's any other questions, post them in the comments of this video, on the forum, on Facebook, wherever, and I will do my best to try to get to them. Until then, see ya.